Yo, 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 what is good? Sixers therapy. We are officially back. And speaking of back, Joel Embiid is back tomorrow. That's what we're here to talk about. The Sixers have had an uneventful start to the season. No drama, nothing going on.
Never.
Never. Let's be real, guys. I mean, since the last time we came on here, you can't even script the way that this season has started. I mean, we're kind of used to it at this point. Even in the whole NBA, it's been a wild start to the season, as we were just talking about off camera. But damn, man. I mean, how did we get here? Sixers are 2-7. Joel Embiid's coming back. Tyrese Maxey's hurt. PG just came back from an injury. And this team is already taking us on a wild roller coaster ride. But fellas, what's going on? How are we feeling, man? Couple weeks into the season.
Season starts tomorrow. Season officially starts tomorrow. Everything we just watched did not happen. It does not exist. It's not a part of history. None of it's real. Every reaction video that I made screaming about whatever I was screaming about, it doesn't matter. None of it happened. It starts tomorrow.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. That this is the opening night tomorrow is what I'm going to consider that. I'm hanging a banner for the NBA Cup. I'll put that out there right now. So let's take care of business. I do think quite clearly Joel Embiid changes everything for this Sixers team. And I still think there are some positive takeaways. We can talk some Jared McCain. We can talk some Gershon Yabusele. And I'm excited to see how all these pieces actually fit together with the superstar now in place. So let's check rock and play ball tomorrow.
We're absolutely winning the cup, by the way. I mean, that would be the most Sixers thing ever. Give us something to celebrate,
Yeah.
No, facts. I feel like it's too good of a book for Embiid's first game back to be against the New York Knicks, coming off of what we saw in that playoff series in the first round. So I'm excited. I've been very critical of Embiid, not as cutthroat as a guy on the Inquirer. But I would say that I'm very optimistic right now. I'm trying to be optimistic, and especially after that, Jared McCain, 27-point game. I know we're gonna talk about that. It's a lot to talk about, man. So I'm optimistic right now.
There's always something to talk about with this team. That is for sure. This team is absolutely chaotic. And if you guys are in the chat right now, give us your thoughts on the team. What's the pulse like? What's the vibes like sitting at 2-7? Doesn't really feel like we're 2-7 because our MVP superstar is coming back tomorrow. But give us your thoughts in the chat. Be sure to like the show, subscribe everywhere, and support everybody on the panel. I want to start off with a statement, and then we'll go to a question. So we'll go around, agree or disagree on the statement, and a brief summation of why you agree or disagree. So the statement I came up with for today is the Sixers are going to be okay with Joel Embiid and will rise back up the Eastern Conference with him on the floor. Agree or disagree? We'll go to Eastwood to begin.
Oh, damn. I got to go first. Man.
Putting you on the spot, man.
Will be okay. A lot of people reply to me and they're like, dude, the Sixers are going to be fine. Relax, calm down. They always say they're going to be fine. And I'm like, what does going to be fine mean? Or like they're going to survive? I agree. It's just a sport. But like we want them to be competitive with the best teams in the East and have a chance to win in, deep into the playoffs. I agree. The first 9 games of the season or whatever it is has been a headache and annoying. I think we get so hyped for the start of the season. We want it to be great right away. And this was probably the weirdest way you could start a season I think I've seen since I've been maybe watching the 76ers.
It's a high bar they cleared too.
Yeah, exactly. They keep topping themselves every season with just the absurdity of things that go down. But Joel Embiid changes the game so much, man. Our frustration can blind us sometimes to what's actually possible when he's on the floor and healthy. And everybody will look better. Caleb Martin on down the line, everybody will look better with the gravity of Joel Embiid. Paul George is still ramping up. He's still ramping up. He's 2 game-winning attempts weren't even close. I have a lot of questions
All
about.
part of the plan, Eastwood. All part of the plan.
But if you get all three of them on the floor and enough games to build chemistry, yes, they can be really, really good, especially when you look at the depth of the rest of the team and other players that are coming around like Gershon Yabusele and Jared McCain and everything. So I agree. Yes, the Sixers will be fine, and we will forget about the first 8 games of the season.
MJ, you're up.
All right, I'm looking at this Eastern Conference standings right now. The Cavs been on fire, 11-0. I'm probably not going to catch them. The Celtics, we already know who they are. After the Cavs, after the Celtics, it's the Pacers 5-5, the Magic 5-6 without Paolo Banchero, the Knicks 4-5. Everybody's, they're going to be the top of the East and all this stuff. They're below 500 with all of their guys. The Miami Heat 4-5. So I'm looking at this. I'm saying, all right, the Sixers are 2-7, 8 games, behind the first seed, but they're only 2.5 games back from the Pacers, who are the 3rd seed. So get an Embiid back. I would like for him to play, a back-to-back. I know we got a game tomorrow and a game on Wednesday, so I would like for him to play a back-to-back. But also, let me give you all this stat. The Lakers, right? Remember when they made that improbable run to the Western Conference Finals? They started the season losing 10 of their 12 games. They lost 10 of their 12 games to start the season. So, look, I ain't saying we got LeBron James, but what I'm saying is you can turn it around. And so if you're a Sixers fan, hold on to that, be optimistic. But how this East is looking is definitely plausible that the Sixers can go ahead and bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
Sean?
Yeah, I'm on the exact same page that I'm a firm agree, RB, and I'll take it a step further that I think the Sixers will be a top 6 seed, a real deal playoff team by the time Christmas is here. That MJ went directly where I was looking with these standings. They're 2.5 games out of 3rd place in the East. That's absurd based on how they started the season, and everything changes with Joel Embiid here. So yes, it's been ugly. Yes, it's been bad, but I use this comparison often that when you break down a football season, like an Eagles season here, the Sixers are basically 0-1 on the year. If you want to do the same amount of games as far as 17 to 82 there, basketball is a grind. It's a long season. They didn't start great, but it's only just smooth sailing from here. It's not going to be smooth sailing because they're the Sixers, but they're going to look way better from here on out.
Yeah, no, I don't have much to add. I'm actually going to agree as well. So we have a consensus on the agree, disagree. But, notice how I phrased the question. If Embiid comes back and everybody's healthy. And that kind of takes me into the next question. Can the Sixers really be a formidable team come playoff time? Will they have enough time, enough chemistry to gel to get everybody on the floor? Because that's, to me, where my biggest concern is. We've seen a lot of good and bad throughout the first 8 games, more bad than good. We've learned about the players we have. They have assets in the tank to go make a move. But what about Joel, PG, and Maxey? I don't know about you guys. PG has not looked good so far. Now, he's in the process of ramping up, as a 3rd option, probably going to look a lot better with Maxey and Embiid. But these guys need time to gel, man. Embiid always talks about continuity. So my question is, will they have enough time, all 3 of them, to play together on the floor to get ready for the playoffs? To that, I don't know the answer. It depends on if they stay healthy. Because we know Joel's not going to come back tomorrow, right, and drop 50. I hope he does. But he usually takes about 2, 3, 4 games to really get in his mode. And the Knicks are coming at him after that playoff series. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
I will point out real quick, did you see the stat for what players are shooting against Karl Anthony Towns in the paint this year?
Yeah,
I did see that.
91.5.
Yeah, I think 92%, whatever it is. So I think Joel, this will be a matchup that he is quite excited for. As far as the wider conversation for the season, It's not ideal. Like, we obviously wish that these were all guys that could be there more often, but I think I'm more optimistic than most for a couple different reasons. Number one is I just love the theoretical fit of, once again, this being a true guard, a true wing, and a true center. I think Joel is the night and day, like, what changes everything. He is, what this entire universe revolves around in the Sixers world here. So he's the guy that really needs to get on the floor and make this happen. But this was all, you can argue with the plan or whatever, but we're talking 6-7 months from now that we're actually worried about him being healthy. So that to me is the biggest thing. I get, like, you want these reps out, but I'm not going to lose sleep over them not being able to suit up against an 11-0 Cavaliers team on Wednesday or matchups like that. To me, the health outweighs the risk as far as not developing this kind of level of trust with each other. I think they're going to figure it out. I think Paul George is going to settle in. And I think, like, once we see Joel on the court and everything fitting around him, I think we're all going to breathe a sigh of relief of, like, okay, this is how it's supposed to look.
Sean, let me respond to that real quick. Here's my concern. All right. They've already said, or Joel Embiid has come out and said, I'm not going to play back-to-backs. And if you look from January to March, I think there's 13 back-to-backs in those months alone. They have one in the next couple of days. So I agree with you. I think people are finally going to realize here, like, the value Embiid brings. We've seen what the team looks like without him. This team can't play without Joel Embiid. He's that good. The magnitude is there. But if Joel really doesn't play back-to-backs, how many are the three of them going to play together? I think that's a real concern. And I think they need to be able to gel. And like you said, find each other's space on the floor, like just get in that groove of how to play. But that's my take on it. And that's what I'm concerned about. I think Joel does need to play some back-to-backs.
Well, you can't go over, for every Joel Embiid missed game. They got to figure out how to win games without Joel Embiid at some point. I do think there's this a silver lining in that Nick Nurse realized that players under 35 years old are good at basketball. And so, he threw Jeff Doughton Jr. on the floor last night. We're all like, it's not rocket science. It's really not a complicated game. I hate to say it, but the average fan can look at the game and say, why aren't you putting this guy in the game? Why aren't you putting this guy in the game? And the coach thinks he's some kind of chemist or rocket scientist and overcomplicates the whole damn thing. And is like, I need experience. I need guys that have been through. No, just basketball. Put a guy on the floor that can create something off the dribble, that can make a shot. Jeff Doughton Jr. can do that. We saw it last year. He plays him last night. We saw the potential of Jared McCain. The guy still went with Reggie Jackson 2 games ago for no reason at all. Finally plays the kid. Look what happens. So I compared Nick Nurse to Doc Rivers a lot in the beginning of this season. But one thing he has that Doc Rivers doesn't have is self-awareness and can at least look in the mirror and say, what I'm doing isn't working. Yep. Let me try something else. Doc Rivers would just run it into the ground until he gets fired. So at least Nick Nurse, he does have that, prefers older veterans, but at least he saw these guys aren't doing anything. I need to do something else. And boom, it worked, So, I have hope that the Sixers are going to learn how to win without Joel Embiid now that there's some lineups that are coming out and scoring some points.
I think interesting subject. I hope that they can play more than 25 games together. And I feel like that's a high. I would be surprised if they play 25 games. I don't know. We're going to see how Joel Embiid plays in his first game. We're going to see how rusty he is. We're going to see if it's true that he doesn't play any back-to-backs. I agree. Whoever said, I would like to see Joel Embiid play some back-to-backs, I 100% agree with that. Because the sentiment that we're trying to protect Joel Embiid and, if he plays his back-to-back, that could, potentially be an injury. Look, you could go ahead. It's basketball at the end of the day. We all play basketball, I feel like, at the park or whatever. Sometimes a freak thing happens. Somebody just falls right into your legs and you might have a ankle injury or something. You can't prevent the inevitable at the end of the day. So all I would say, yes, should there be caution? I'm not saying Embiid has to play every single game, but I would like to see him play some back-to-backs. And the way that Paul George is playing, yes, he's a player that you can plug and play. And I think very highly that in any system, he'll be able to, go ahead and cook. I believe that he's averaging 14 points right now on below 40% shooting. All right, I believe he will go ahead and put better numbers than that as the season goes on. But I'm looking at the Sixers. I'm saying, all right, can we get some more games of Joel Embiid this season? That's what we need. I'm Tyrese Maxey again. He got injured, but I know that he'll be back, and he's a guy who'll play damn near every game. But the real question is Joel Embiid, if he's gonna go ahead and play, and how he'll mesh with Paul George, and that's something I want to see. And I really don't know how many games they will play, but I hope that it is between 25 to 30. That's all I'm hoping for. And my last thing, the Brooklyn Nets are a team. They barely played any games with each other. But I wouldn't say like the Brooklyn Nets, if you just match them up with the Sixers in 2021, the Brooklyn Nets, that they're like so much more talented than the Sixers. If you want to say the Nets are more talented, all right, cool. But it's close. I mean, you have the best top 2-3 big man in the game. You got a top 7 small forward in the game. You got a top 10, top 7 point guard in the game right now. So you have the talent. And we have seen a situation with the Nets. They were literally KD, a big shoe from getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. So it's possible, but I would like to see them get some more reps in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, where I'm at is, and what if Embiid comes back on a minute restriction tomorrow, just like Paul George? And I think that's going to happen.
It's probably going to happen. By the way, I'm going to, anyone, you go to work tomorrow, tell your boss you're on a minutes restriction because everyone else can do it.
I wish.
I think a good way to sum the Sixers up right now is they now have a lot less room for error. Like the error, like the margin of error is so small now because they have dug themselves in a hole. Like we didn't expect them to set the world on fire without Joel, right? And then PG's banged up, Maxey, but they are 2 epic performances away from being 0-9. Like, let's be honest here, okay? It's like a Tyrese Maxey 45-point OT thriller. It took a 27 off the bench point game from Jared McCain coming out party to win games. The Sixers have not played good. And I mean, yeah, we can question the roster. Sure. Embiid's presence is going to help. But this team, man, I mean, they don't have a lot to work with. Like, they need to start winning now. And it's like, are you still going to get in the ramp up phase of getting Joel back and then getting Tyrese back? That's where I'm at. And I don't want to just be the negative one here, but that's how I feel, man. And I think you have to capitalize on this year. Like somebody said earlier, the Eastern Conference is terrible. It's the Celtics and the rest. Like, can you beat the Celtics? That should be the bar. Yeah. The goal is not to get to the second round of the playoffs again. The goal is to make it. So they need to get it done and figure it out now.
Yeah, and to push back a little bit here is once again 2.5 games out of third place. That as bad as they have looked, the rest of the East has looked just as bad with like less reason for that than the Sixers. Like at least when you're looking at the Sixers team, we can sit here and we have yet to see Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Paul George on the floor together. Paul George was hurt coming into the season. We don't know what the deal is with Joel specifically. Maxey's got a hamstring. All these things going on. Look at the Milwaukee Bucks right now. That is a team heading downhill fast that I have basically zero optimism, nor does it seem like they do for improving. Other teams around the league. Yes, the Cavs look unbelievable right now, but I'm still not ready to believe that is like a contending level leap that they've taken. I still need to see that for a longer period. There's not a lot in this Eastern Conference that truly scares me. The Celtics are the standard. That is the one team. But for this Sixers team, it's about getting on the same page themselves. We have no clue how good they can truly look. And I'm also willing to pretty much guarantee that there will be a stretch with this team when it finally gets put together that it's all of a sudden, wow, this is what it looks like. The Sixers look dangerous. And that's going to be a huge national storyline. So that's probably a couple months down the line, but I guarantee we're going to be experienced about that. And the tune's going to be a whole lot different with this team.
Yeah, I agree with that. Does Paul George worry any of you guys with the way he's playing right now? I think there's two different ways to look at it. Like he hyperextended his knee And I said earlier or on a live stream last night or something that I feel like he's not playing as physical now as he did in that 1 or 2 preseason games. He looks like he's kind of avoiding contact and like, especially the step back 3 last night was just like, bro, just put the ball on the floor and go draw a foul. It's so, that kind of bothers me a little bit. But at the same time, he's not the guy that you're going to rely on to lead you somewhere. I think he's gonna have some good games, and he'll have games where he's having a good shooting night, and he'll give you 30 plus or whatever, and then you'll rely on him that specific game. But I don't think anybody really expected Paul George to come here and be like the superstar that he used to be. He doesn't look great right now. He's shooting 10% from 3 on the season so far. He's like 2 for 20, I think. Yeah, what do you guys think about Paul George so far and how he's playing? Does it have anything to do with the knee also?
I think with Paul George, obviously I ain't think he would be, what he was like in his prime. I was like with the Pacers and Clippers, all of that. But I will say though, I give him credit for being a facilitator. He's averaging 5.8 assists. He had like a season high, like 9 assists the other night. So I'll give him that. But it's kind of like with him, he's gonna take 6-7 threes a game. And right now he's making 16% on his threes. So if he's doing that, this is the production that you're gonna get. I would like to believe that, the law averages, he's bad right now shooting wise, but he'll go on a hot streak and we'll be like, oh my gosh, this is the guy that we were saying, as long as you're better than Tobias Harris, we won. So I still believe that. I still believe that he'll be better than what Tobias was, even though, of course, Tobias had a pretty good game when we played the Pistons. Nonetheless, I do believe that, law averages will go ahead and balance out, but I like that he's been more of a facilitator,
right,
in the absence of Embiid and Maxey.
And I think it's fine to admit that I think he is the Michael Jordan of Tobias Harris's. I think he is. I think he is what Tobias Harris thinks he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. Did we overpay for that? Absolutely. But a bad Tobias Harris game is 0 points. A bad Paul George game is 15 points. It is what it is, really. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about it.
Yeah,
I agree. Shout out to Andre real quick. $5 super chat. He says, do you think Joel will be the team's leading scorer or more of a defensive anchor? Embiid is going to get hurt trying to average 30 again. I mean, the hope is he doesn't have to average 30 every night. Like, this is why you get a Paul George, right? Even 15 to 20 is better than what Tobias gave you, especially when Embiid was banged up, early in the season trying to muscle through. So I would hope Joel doesn't have to play, hero mode every single game.
Yeah, I absolutely want to see him kind of scale back how much is on his plate, primarily offensively. That I do think, like, we haven't seen the best version of Joel in the defensive end in a couple of years now. That there was a stretch in time where this guy was mentioned in the top rim protectors in the league, where he was one of the most universally talented defenders at any position, and that has not been the case in the past couple of years. He still has his flashes where he turns it on, but he's had so much on his plate offensively that it's pretty unreasonable for him to expect that from him on both sides of the floor. So I'd like to see a little bit of that version of Joel return, where he is comfortable relying on the Tyrese Maxeys, the Jared McCains, the Paul Georges on this team. Now, as far as the Paul George conversation, for me, I think it just kind of confirmed what we already knew, that Paul George is going to be the number 3 on this team. This is Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey's squad. And there's 2 specific areas that Paul George, I think, like, changes the ceiling of this team drastically. Number 1 is on the defensive side of the floor. The way that he gets his hands in places, like, there's almost like Robert Covington, like, except he's capable of like dribbling the ball down the other floor and just making things happen there. So I'm excited about that defensively. His like screen navigation and getting through picks is incredibly impressive, has really popped to me. And then MJ nailed it on the offensive side of the floor. The ability of him to just drive and dish and create for others is such like a breath of fresh air, because there really has not been a lot of that. James Harden was really the only other guy that has done that, or Ben Simmons back when he was actually a relevant basketball player. The fact that Paul George can do this with the other things, to me, is really appealing. he's not like this superstar big three maybe that we were hoping for, but I still think he's a guy that can absolutely be a super high level piece of the Sixers team. I still think he's a pretty perfect fit when factoring in how this team completely fits together. So I'm not ready to be like have buyer's remorse over the PG signing.
Does he think he's a superstar though? Because that's one thing I'm a little bit worried about. Because he used the word superstar talking about himself on his podcast over the summer, and I was like, hold on a second. And then he takes 2 potential game-winning shots when there's another player on the floor who's having a good shooting night. I'm like, does he think he's? I don't know. You know, we have the conversations about what we expect Paul George to be on this team, but I wonder what the conversations were like with him signing with the team, and what does he really think he is on this team? Maybe he thinks he's the leader on this team. Maybe he thinks he is the guy that takes the final shot. You know?
I don't want him to think I am the leader on this team. I don't think he's really shown that through like some of the press conferences he's had, but I actually want him to think he's a superstar, because there's times in these games where I'm going, hey, PG, you got 9 shot attempts in an entire ball game. You know, like, we need you here. PG, you can play. Now, I don't want him to just shot chuck and be inefficient, but at some point, I actually think he's a little bit too passive, not with the game on the line. That shot should have went to Tyrese Maxey, but hey, PG, you're a max player. You know, you're not a $20 million guy. Like, step up and take action a little bit here.
I think he's playing a little hesitant after the hyperextended knee. You know what I mean? And I think that's going to take some time to get mentally over a little bit.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Could be.
As far as like the 2 game-winning attempts, so I have different takes on each. Last night, to me, was worse. That like just drive to the basket, make something. I thought last night was bad, but I was happy that he was the guy because he was the option. The first one where he kind of waved off Maxey, to me, like, for starters, I love that Nurse just let them play through it, figure it out. I understand it resulted in a loss, obviously, and you're frustrated after the fact, but I think it's cool for their first time on the floor to be like, let these 2 sort it out. And for me, my criticism is kind of on Maxey to go get that ball. Make it clear that that's your shot. Like, if you want to be this guy, and he should and has shown every intention and every capability to, go run up top and say, yeah, pass me the rock here, PG. You just got here. This is your first game. Move over for a second. That's kind of what I thought that should have gone there. And I like that the fact that that didn't happen. Paul George said, all right, let me try and cook real quick. Got to his spot, and then he obviously missed the shot. But to me, like, I put more of that on, if you're going to allow these guys to play through, then that's on Maxey to say, I'm ready to be this guy. And that didn't happen. So I appreciate that Paul George at least stepped into those shoes.
Yeah. So, you know, hopefully he can go ahead, MJ. You got something?
I would say, like, last thing with Paul George coming here, I never expected him to be that go-to guy down the stretch. I know like with Maxey out, that might it'll turn to him more, and then even with Maxey being in, it was times like y'all said, like Maxey has deferred, but I'm looking for Tyrese Maxey when he comes back to show us what he did in the playoffs. He showed us that he was that go-to guy against the Knicks on the biggest stage. I mean, he hit a half-court shot that sent us to overtime, and took us, and won that game. So at MSG on the biggest stage. So I'm not looking for Paul George to be the savior. That's Joel Embiid. I'm not looking for him to be that go-to guy. I think that's Tyrese Maxey. We have seen Maxey be much more effective when he has another star or another superstar with him.
Yeah.
Again, I like Maxey a lot, but maybe it will change eventually. But him being like that go-to guy when he has nobody around him, like no, that's not him.
Even with Paul George, you're seeing like the clear night and day how good he's been just with the presence of PG or the attention that he commands.
100%. So if you're looking at, all right, they can complement each other, but come the end of the game, I'm looking for Tyrese Maxey to go ahead and come through for us.
There's so many like storylines and wrinkles and what ifs that we don't really know the answer to yet. But shout out to everybody in the chat, man. Sixers Therapy. Do us a favor, like the stream, share it around, etc. We're going to give some shout outs here, right, to some of these guys who are playing well. There's also guys who are not living up to expectation, so we could talk about that. But I want to hone in here for a second on one issue, okay? Sixers have had a lot of them. This has been ugly basketball. I know it's not what we can expect. And I want to preface this by saying, shout out to Gershon Yabusele, when a guy has his back against the wall, I mean, that dude was probably eating nothing trying to survive in like just a career in basketball. And he gets an opportunity off of a moment by dunking on LeBron and now comes over on a non-guaranteed contract and is absolutely hooping. So shout out to Yabusele for making the most of his opportunity.
I mean, he was making money. He was making $1 million a year in the Euro League.
I don't even think he's making $1 million now.
No, he's not making money now because he took the buyout and it cost him money. But he was, he wasn't on the street. He was getting paid. It wasn't NBA money.
Listen, 6 years, 6 years he was out of the league. I mean, it's hard to make a comeback. It's hard to make a comeback. But here's what I want to say. The Sixers are dead last in rebounding. And we said it the entire summer. I've been saying this. I don't know how many times I've said this.
We're last in rebounding again?
We are last in rebounding. We don't have a power forward on the team. Now, Gershon, I think he's going to slide into the starting 4 role. We can talk about starting lineups. I think he's been wonderful. He's shooting 43% from 3.
Yeah.
He has, shown a bunch of aggressiveness and just making the right plays. He's been a really surprising, good addition to this team. The Sixers don't have a power forward. Now, I'm going to keep hope that they go make a move and get one. KJ Martin, even though he's had a couple flashes, doesn't really look like the guy. Gershon, I don't know if he can play 35 minutes a game. I mean, Gershon has had to come in and play center because Drummond has been so bad.
Yeah.
The Sixers' biggest issue still remains that they don't have a rebounder that can slide in next to Joel. As great as Gershon has been, he's averaging 4 rebounds a game. The best rebounder outside of Drummond is averaging 6 rebounds a game. It's Caleb Martin, who looks like he has thoracic outlet syndrome and has been really not that good. So my thing is, you got to get a power forward on this team, man. You have to get a rebounder. And when we said that before, everybody said, well, Drummond. Drummond's a backup center, man. He's not a power forward. And I don't want Joel to come back and have to deal with the stress of, damn, we can't get any boards. I got to average 12, 13 boards a game just to survive. That's my take on it. What do you guys think?
Is this a Daryl Morey issue? Because, ever since the 2016 Warriors, 2015 maybe when they were battling the Rockets and he started to build the team just full of 3-point shooters and play 5 out and try to shoot more threes than everybody else. And he's an analytics guy. Does Daryl Morey even believe in a power forward? You know what I mean? Because once you saw the starting lineup this season and you see there's no real power forward, it's Caleb Martin, And then, who is a prototypical power forward in today's NBA? Is it like Evan Mobley or, you know what I mean? Those kind of
Bobby Portis.
Bobby Portis is definitely a great one. Yeah. So,
Aaron
they
Gordon.
definitely need one. But, I don't even feel like Daryl Morey believes in one. Who was the power forward on those Rockets teams? Eric Gordon, probably?
PJ Tucker, man.
PJ Tucker, exactly. Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker. That's the same person.
Yeah, but they never won. They never won, though.
Right. He never won.
Right. And that's why that's what I'm saying. How many years is this going to be an issue? Because Tobias Harris wasn't a good rebounder, and he still averaged 8 per game. And now you got even worse. So they don't have that guy next to Joel. And it's just one of the concerns I have, in addition to another one that we'll get to in a few minutes.
So we think Yabu can play next to Embiid. Is that what you're saying?
I think he's going to be the temporary option, but I don't think that's the long-term solution.
Okay.
Yabu's a great bench piece, and he's been a great spark, but he can't be the starting power forward on this championship team.
You don't think so?
Maybe you guys disagree.
I think he might. I think he might, to be perfectly honest. Let me start with the rebounding issue as a whole here. I point most of the finger directly at Andre Drummond, the self-proclaimed best rebounder of all time heading into the season. And I get he's overexposed right now, that the real situation is he's brought in to be the backup center, not the starter. But also some of the appeal to signing him is that he could scale up and do these things when the opportunity commanded that to be the case while Joel Embiid is out. The effort rebounding last night was brutal, and this has been a couple games that we've seen that from Drummond now. When you're getting out-rebounded by Taj Gibson in the year 2024, man, that just cannot happen. So Drummond, I put a lot of the rebounding blame on. As far as the Yabusele conversation, I think we're seeing that he's like he's going to be a negative rebounder playing the center spot, but I think he'll be a plus rebounder when he slides over to the power forward, and that's his kind of competition there. The dude scraps, the dude competes, he boxes out, he throws his big body all over the place. And I do think like the 3-point shot, while he's not going to be a 43% 3-point shooter for the season, I think it's legitimate enough to stay. And I do think that means it's possible for him to share the floor with Joel. Like we kind of laugh and joke about the Olympics and stuff, but let's not forget that was the gold medal match that he was the starting power forward for France playing against all these Team USA guys and was like that throughout the season. That yes, like that moment of him dunk on LeBron took the cake, but he was awesome that entire Olympics. Like this dude has played some high level basketball and clearly looks like motivated, is locked in, and I'm ready to ride with him. So I've been nothing but impressed with Yabusele. And I'll also note a quick chemistry thing. Paul George, 6 of his 9 assists last night were to Yabusele, which to me, that's showing some trust from one of the big dogs on the team. So I've been thrilled with what he's shown.
I have no problem with Yabusele, but my thing is about the rebounding on this team. Like it's going to be the death again. Every year in the playoffs, they get out rebound. I mean, look at what the Knicks did last year. DiVincenzo, Hart, like they just got dudes that can get to the glass, man.
Musa Diabate had 11 rebounds off the bench last night. And a couple of them were literally out battling Andre Drummond. Musa Diabate.
Drummond should be so embarrassed by that. Like that, the dude that seriously said, I'm the greatest rebounder to ever play basketball. He told Sixers media. Well, dude, if that is the case, then like that kind of stuff just cannot happen. And like he hasn't been good enough in the other areas that for Drummond to be like a plus for this team, you literally got to grab every single rebound when you're on the floor, especially on the defensive end. And that just hasn't happened yet.
Hasn't happened. I'll say I want to see what this squad looks like before Daryl Morey pulls the trigger to make a trade. I just want to see how Yabusele looks like with Embiid, a guy who I am looking at on a 2-6 team that's not doing nothing in the nation's capital, Kyle Kuzma. He's averaging 17 points, 7 rebounds. I've been saying before the season started, now the season started, we got the assets. Let's trade for Kyle Kuzma, and we can actually get a legit power forward that can stretch, the court and all of that. Give space for MB, give space for Maxey to go ahead and cook, give space for Paul George to cook. And also, I agree that, like, Morey, he don't care about the power forward position. He don't really care. He don't really care. I mean, for him, too, it's like he was able to compete against the Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant with a far less talented team. So he's always going to feel like, power forward, let's just shoot threes, spread the court, all of that. That's what I made my living off of a guy like James Harden, which that's what he did in his prime in Houston. So I know why he feels like that. I don't really blame him just because, like, you took the Warriors to 7 games. But let's just see what this team looks like with Embiid coming back. And if they don't look good, if Yabusele doesn't look that good, and we're like, all right, we're going to have to add somebody new, Kyle Kuzma, he's on that list for me.
Shout out to Brian, $5 super chat. He says, PG would be so much better if he stops trying to sauce every play, but he does more dribble moves than Harden, but pulls up for a midi. Yeah, you got to be decisive, man. Somebody just said it, Bobby Portis. And I think I told you guys before the season, like, Doc Rivers is getting fired. There's no doubt about it. And once the Bucks start to tank, I would go all in for Bobby Portis. I mean, he is the prototypical player that would help this team right now. Like, if we need to name a power forward, he is the one. All right. And I don't want to sound negative. I know I do right now. The other issue on this team, they don't have a lot of playmaking. Now, maybe PG helps that out, but at the point guard position, we are seeing a concern of a coach playing his best friend, his son, whatever, his champion, Kyle Lowry. And I like Lowry, but here's my positive, guys. Jared McCain is a freaking hooper, man. This dude can play. It is so refreshing to have a young player, for once, come into this team and be ready. He wants the ball in the big moment. He hits the shots. He said to Sean and I at Summer League, I want to work on shot making and making the right reads on defense. He does that and more. For him to go out there last night, I know it was against the Hornets. no PG in overtime. He wanted it on every possession. And that late fourth quarter shot against Brandon Miller, the spin dribble pull up, I mean, that was like fifth year stuff, man. He can hoop, man. And I know you guys might not agree. I would start Jared McCain right now. With Maxey out, I would start him. Maybe he can't handle it. McCain needs to play. Lowry needs to be very limited off the bench. But looking into the future, not only do they need a rebounder, they might need a pure point guard. What do we think?
By the way, Paul George referred to Jared McCain as a fifth-year player last night, just making a joke about the fact that he plays like a fifth-year player. And I haven't seen a player that complete that young, and I don't know when. You know, Tyrese Maxey, we always talked about, he has the potential if he improves in this area, in this area, in this area. We see this kid, and I'm like, actually, what can't he do at this point? He's even defending at his size. Yeah. You know, he locked up LaMelo Ball last night in a crucial possession, one of the quickest guys off the dribble that you'll find in the NBA, and he couldn't break down Jared McCain. I see no reason for him to not get at least all of the Eric Gordon backup shooting guard minutes. Nick Nurse, for some reason, doesn't think he's a point guard. I remember when he was talking about, with Maxey out, I'm going to play Lowry and Reggie Jackson's going to back him up. And we were like, what? Where's McCain at? But he brought McCain into the game with Reggie Jackson. So he seems to think Jared McCain's more of a two. But I mean, the kid looks amazing so far, man. He's out of this world so far. You have to play him. It's not like he has potential or maybe he'll work his way in. No, play him right now, 30 minutes a game. Like, there's no reason not to.
What's the wait? Well, what's the wait? And, you know, RB's a great word you said, refreshing. It's refreshing to have a rookie like off rip. I mean, outside of Zach Edey, the guy Zachary, number 1 overall pick, Jalen Wells has been snapping for the Grizzlies. Outside of those guys, Jared McCain is top 5 in points for rookies. Yeah. Top 5. Like, some guys, you can just look at the tape, just watch ball, and it can be an alien that comes on Earth. They'll be like, they'll look at Jared McCain, not knowing who these guys are, and be like, oh yeah, no, I don't know this basketball stuff, but he's probably one of the best players on the court, and that's what he was showing. One of the best. Look, he got some more growing to do, but he's a fantastic shooter. He's already shooting like above 40% from the field. I feel like as a rookie being thrusted in and having a bigger role than you might expect with these stars being out, that's highly, highly impressive. But now it has me thinking, like, I was thinking at the end of this season, we would see McCain, you know, get more minutes and maybe, you know, get into that like 6-man type of role. I feel like when Maxey comes back, keep playing, bro. Like I don't get what's the point of limiting him. Like, and you know, Eastwood, you know, I follow you all that and has some great points about like why is Nick Nurse holding on to 2019? 2019, I was a freshman in college. A freshman in college, bro. I'm a master's student. Why is Nick Nurse holding on to this Kyle Lowry thing? I think Kyle Lowry is a great dude. You know, Villanova guy, Philly guy through and through. A great thing for him to be for the Sixers, but there's no way that he should be playing over Jared McCain. Come on.
Yeah.
I think if you ask Kyle Lowry that question, he would say the same thing too, is like my favorite part about all this. Now, as far as like Jared McCain, I've been a fan of Jared McCain. I'm very excited what he brings to this team. There were 2 things last night that particularly fired me up about it. Number one is, well, beyond just obviously how good he looked on the court, he walked off that floor, got interviewed on the sideline after the 27-point performance, and they asked him, how is it that you stay so confident out there? And his reply was, I work too hard to not be this confident, which just fired me up for like, what a response from a kid like that. And number 2, Eastwood, you nailed it with that possession on LaMelo, man. Like, that's the ceiling for him. What the question is, can he be a guy that can close lineups or be a guy that can hold up on the defensive side of the floor? LaMelo got the switch, got the matchup he wanted, and McCain had him in jail for the entire length of the shot clock there. So I was blown away by that. I respect the commitment that he's showing on that side of the floor as well. And I also know for sure that there's a level of just red hot shooting that he's capable of that we haven't seen in a Sixers uniform just yet. The game that stands out in my head was, I believe, was the opening round of the NCAA tournament. It was against JMU, where McCain knocked down 8 3-pointers, and it was just one after another after another. That when he gets in that mode, it's scary. And that's something the Sixers absolutely have been lacking on this roster. So you got a guy that's capable of it. Let's just roll him out and see what happens. There's no harm in just keeping him on the floor. And like at the worst, what's exciting about him to me, he just makes things happen, man. He's constantly moving. He's constantly creating shots. He's not afraid of a single matchup. Sign me up for as many Jared McCain minutes as I can get. And I do believe like this is a huge deal, not just for this year, but in the long term, looking for like that pass the baton type moment in that franchise. He could be one of those caliber of players.
You know, for years we've sat here and we're like, why can't we just draft athletes? Why can't we just draft guys that just look like natural players, you know, not having a shooting issue or, you know, a confidence issue? There was a play last night where McCain rolls up top off a screen and he like almost fades away from a deep three and just nails a three. And it was so beautiful, man. It's like, wow, they got an actual hooper, man. This guy can play. And yeah, I agree with all you guys. Like I said before, like you got to play him at this point. What has he done not to earn minutes? And what I think is really cool is that the one game he gets 3 minutes, and that could really, you know, have destroyed his confidence after getting like 21 or 17. And he comes back the next game and he's just right back on it. So to me, he's done nothing to lose minutes. He has gained more minutes. And going back to my original point, you know, I do think there could potentially be an issue when it comes to somebody running the floor down the line. Now, could he do that next to Maxey? Little bit of a size issue in the backcourt, but at least as a 6-man, you got to let him go, man. He just looks like he belongs. He looks like he's been there.
Yeah, I think he's a perfect 6-man right now. I think he's a perfect 6-man, like automatic offense, bring him off the bench. He can make things happen, you know? And it's no shock that this team has you know, in certain games to start the season, they look stagnant, like nobody can do anything. Yeah, because they're all 38 years old, bro. Nobody can beat anybody off the dribble. What are you doing? It doesn't make any sense to me. So you put a young kid with some speed on the floor, and look what happens. You know, it's crazy. These guys, Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry, were legitimately retired 2 years ago. They should not be playing NBA basketball right now. Kyle Lowry could be in at the most a 10-minute TJ McConnell type of role because he's still going to dive on the floor and take a charge and do stuff like that. But yeah, it shouldn't be 30 minutes in a game, dude.
So we all agree they probably need to get a point guard, right? I mean, obviously we got to wait a little bit for some of these teams that kind of fall out of the mix, but I would not be opposed at all. You get a rebounder and a pure point on this team, let Maxey play the 2. I think they got something cooking really good here. Now with McCain, Yabusele, one guy we haven't talked about is Kelly Oubre. My gosh, he's got to be better, man. Caleb Martin hopefully figures out this shot hitch thing going on, but he's at least impacting the game now in other ways. Kelly, I feel like, man, I hope Kelly just slides back into that 3-and-D role when Joel comes back. But I think they need a point guard down the line.
Or maybe we all overrated Kelly Oubre so much because he was a 6'7" two-way athlete that we hadn't seen since Andre Iguodala on this team, you know? So True. Maybe now you have a couple of others and it's like, oh, Kelly Oubre's not that, you know, it's not like he's irreplaceable. Or
Same with Ricky Council too, with RC4, who barely has gotten any minutes. And when he does, he doesn't look like the Ricky from last year, but
I just like Kelly Oubre as a person. Like, if a bar fight breaks out, I want Kelly Oubre on my side. He doesn't give a shit about anything, dude. He will fly at 3 people, reckless abandon. I respect it. If he goes 0 for 20, I'm like, it's Kelly Oubre. I like it.
Yeah, I do feel that. I also think with Kelly, like him, I would say more so than most of the roster is directly impacted by when Embiid's there and when he's not. Like, there was some genuine chemistry between him and Joel for those backdoor cuts last year. He's a guy that fed off the gravity, and I think really was the guy that was like left open a lot by other teams because of, you know, when you are bringing to it Joel and the issues that it caused. So it hasn't been pretty, but I'm willing to still keep my like judgment open until I see him back on the floor with Joel. But yeah, hopefully better days ahead.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, it's different type of role players in the NBA. It's some role players that like their role is limited because of star players, But once they get more freedom, maybe an injury here or there or a trade here or there, whatever the case may be, they can show, nah, like I'm really like that. We're seeing that with Norman Powell on the Clippers. Like, all right, like, he's really been snapping this season. If Kawhi was there, he probably wouldn't have been as productive offensively. And then there's other role players that they try to increase their role because of maybe a trade or an injury, and we're just seeing they don't have the skill set to be that guy. I think the Sixers, we're seeing a lot of these role players, they just don't have that skill set to be like one of those go-to guys when those superstar players and Maxey and Embiid are on the court. So I would love to see what Oubre looks like with Embiid drawing so much attention. I would love to see what Caleb Martin looks like with Maxey coming back and Embiid coming back and all the wide open shots that he's going to get in bunches. So a lot of these role players, like, we're going to see them flourish once our superstars come back. I think that's, a really big thing to look forward to. But frankly, they don't have the skill set to be like a 2 or a 3, on a good team. Like, that's just not who they are.
Yeah, no, I agree. Shout out to Brian, super chat. He says Philadelphia pump fakers, only Kelly and J-Mac pull up quick. Dude, Eric Gordon and Reggie are so nasty. I cannot watch. It's been tough, man. It's been tough. So I want to talk about the lineups. And I guess we can talk about Nurse a little bit, and then we'll talk about what the schedule looks like coming up. Is Nick Nurse still a good coach for this team? Like, I don't want to overreact. I know it's been tough to coach without Joel. It's been tough to coach without Maxey and PG, but we all can admit, right? Like, Nurse has not done a good job with what he has been dealt with. Where do we sit? Where do we toe the line here? Has Nurse gone overboard? Are we too frustrated with him? I still think he's a knowledgeable head coach that will get it together, but I mean, some of these decisions you do have to question. And will he rely on the young players with the guys coming back? I think he has to. And, again, like I said earlier, the Sixers aren't in like a play around phase of this whole process. No pun intended. Like, we need results, man. You got to play the best guys out there on the floor, whoever it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, I think with coaches, just like players, every coach has a slightly different skill set for what they're good at. When you look at Doc Rivers, for as critical as we were of him, what he was excellent at is those random nights where they had no bodies, is finding a way to raise the floor of the team and keep that competitive. I don't think that's one of Nurse's skill sets. I think he's more of a ceiling raiser than a floor raiser in a team that I don't think he's been particularly good at making the right call and pulling the right strings. I think I'm still confident in him to be the guy when the moment's at its largest and you have all the right tools in your tool bag here with the Sixers team. So I haven't loved what I've seen from him, but I do give him a little credit for adjusting, that he's at least trying things. We're not rolling with just Reggie Jackson and Kyle Lowry still. And I also listened to a little bit of his reasoning at the press conference and kind of understood that the way he said it is, look, my first route is to go to the veterans. And then if it's not looking the way I want it to, then it's next down the line. So that's how things have played out this year. He's clearly moved down the line a little, and we're seeing the effects of that with McCain. Now, you obviously can push back and say, well, you see these guys at practice every day. You should have a better feel and kind of know what's going to happen there. So I hear that as well. It definitely has been far from like an A+ start to the season for Nick Nurse, but it hasn't fully changed my optimism for what he can do when this team's fully constructed.
So Nick Nurse is a superstar merchant, pretty much. Yeah, Kawhi Leonard, he wins the championship. He had Joel Embiid last year. Sixers looked pretty good. Without them, he's nothing, and that's fine.
Do you know why, guys? Though it's because like the Doc Rivers thing, being able to raise the floor without stars. It's just that NBA basketball players are really good at basketball. And when Doc Rivers didn't have any stars, there was no Doc Rivers system. There was no Doc Rivers being in the way with some kind of pecking order, and all of a sudden they were better. NBA coaches might be more in the way of everything than they are affecting the actual game. Like it's just 5-on-5 basketball. pass and screen, dude. Like pass and screen, and if you have the 5 best players on the floor, you're going to score more points than the other team. I think these guys think they're geniuses. They have some kind of elaborate system. I just don't think it's that complicated, and that's why every time that happened, it was more about Doc Rivers' system not being there, and then a bunch of players just got to play free, and they played a lot better. And I see the same thing with Nick Nurse in a lot of ways. And also, when these guys win championships, they get such an ego, and then they start to say, I need win now players. I need veterans who are playoff tested and ready to win now. And then they're so obsessed with old veterans. And I'm just like, some NBA teams would be better with no coach at all. Seriously. I'm serious.
Like the
Milwaukee That's my take
Bucks,
on it.
maybe?
I don't think NBA coaches are as important as they think they are. That's my take on it.
I agree. I mean, yeah, compared to like NBA, NFL,
not even close.
Come on, that is night and day. I do have a question for you, Sean. When you say like a ceiling raiser versus could you just explain that more for the people too?
Yes, so for Doc Rivers, I mean that if you give Doc Rivers, Nick Nurse and Doc Rivers were each handed teams of equal talent. So let's start with they're handed a very poor lottery-bound team. I think Doc Rivers would win more games than Nick Nurse would with that team. That I think he is capable of raising that team of caliber. Now, if you were to take these same 2 coaches and hand them championship caliber teams that are ready to win it all, I like Nick Nurse's chances of getting over the edge and winning when the stage is largest. That I do think that there are slightly different skill sets for the strings you need to pull for that. I do think DJ is right that NBA coaches in general are not as impactful as they think they are. But I do think that takes different strings to pull on a team. So I think for Nurse, this is not a strong point of his. And to be perfectly honest, that's not something I rate particularly highly on a coach. That I would much prefer a guy I have confidence in to raise the ceiling and the floor. But that's kind of my assessment of both them.
That's a great point. And I fully agree. I mean, we saw what Doc Rivers did with the Clippers that season when they had nobody. Tobias Harris, he had his career year, kind of made a fortune off that 1 year there. But no, I fully agree. I think with that Nick Nurse, we have to, as much as we don't like what we have seen from him, whether it's playing Jerry McCain more or, not playing these veteran guys who are old as much as he has, a fair assessment has to be once and if we get this big 3 together. Until we get this big 3 together, I might not like what he's doing, but I gotta give him all right, let's just see what the whole thing looks like when we have everybody together. Because we have all these other teams like Tom Thibodeau. He got Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, and Mikal Bridges, all his guys, and they're below 500 now. So ultimately, I want to see what we are with our full superstars, but I agree. Nick Nurse has been far from perfect.
Yeah, it's a good point. Shout out to Bill with a $10 super chat. He says Nick Nurse did have a great record and won Coach of the Year after Kawhi left. He did for a season. They didn't, I think they got eliminated in the second round. But after that, it kind of deteriorated. So I think Sean makes a really good point.
Well, he implemented good defensive strategies, and his roster was a lot of 6'10" athletes that could switch everything. I'm not saying it's just the roster. I think somebody in the chat said Eric Spoelstra is a wizard. I think he's a great defensive coach too, that implements a lot of different zone looks and things like that. But you still have to have long switchable defenders to be able to do all of that stuff. And to the Eric Spoelstra's a wizard comment in the chat. What has he won without LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh? He's a wizard. What's he winning?
I think it does go back to Eastwood's point.
Jimmy Butler went to the finals.
How much does the coach really impact the game? Steve Kerr. I mean, I don't think Steve Kerr's that good of a coach. I just think he had the greatest team of all time.
Way more for the stuff you see before they get on the court, like the sets that they're running, defensively, the way they rotate, that kind of stuff is installed through preseason and training camp, all that type of thing. As far as the game to game, you'll see the occasional ATO that a coach will draw up, and obviously the substitute patterns that we've been ripping on for most of this live stream here. The coach is in control of that, but I do think the what matters most is the stuff that we don't see on full display. It is how this team is prepared, like the way they know to rotate, the plays that they're going to run, all that type of thing. So I think like as far as game day, maybe not as much, but I do think like coach still matters a lot.
Yeah, to Sean, to that point, I think what Nick Nurse does that Doc Rivers is a lot better at Doc Rivers is practice and repetition. I think Doc Rivers just thinks like, I have great players. They're going to play great. We're going to go out there. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. You know, it didn't even seem like they ever even had a practice. And like NBA superstars still need repetition and practice and discipline, and especially these guys that are getting $200 million. And you know, it's probably hard to motivate some of these guys. We've seen it with some guys. So I think Nick Nurse is a guy that he's not afraid to get on some guys. He's not afraid to get them in the practice facility and make them do the same drill 50 times in a row until they perfect it and stuff like that. So I will say that about him too.
I think my take is at the end of the day, you got to have a certain bar of talent. Like you got to have the guys, you know, like the coach can maybe get a little more out of them and keep them together. And, you know, if the chemistry's not on point, you know, can help some things, but you got to have the guys too. And I want to talk about the Sixers schedule, but one thing that just kept popping up in my head while you guys were ranting there a little bit. Damn, thank God we're not the Bucks, man.
Yeah.
I mean, at least we have some hope, you know, like our guys are coming back. Hopefully they can stay healthy. I am so eager to see how Doc Rivers tries to play his way out of this one. I mean, you're 2-8 with Giannis, Dame, you know, all these guys. I mean, I know Middleton's been banged up, but dude, we could be the Bucks right now. We could have had Joel, PG, and Maxey and be 2-8. And then what? Then what's your answer? Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. Like the Bucks are actually terrible.
It's pretty unbelievable that they hired Doc Rivers. It's pretty unbelievable. It really
They fired a guy that was what, 30-13? Like sometimes these teams overthink, man. Like people in power, they try to press too many buttons instead of going 1, 2, 3. It's let me go 1, 2, 5, 10, 100, you know, like
they don't know what they're doing.
The guy was a rookie coach, man.
Yeah. A lot of these owners, you know, we think owners know basketball. They don't know anything about basketball. They're owning a team. They know finance. They know how to take the money that their dad gave them and turn it into something by buying sports teams or whatever else. I'm not saying some of them didn't come from the ground up. But yeah, they don't know what they're doing at all. So a lot of times these owners have too much decision making and they just think they're playing 2K, man. They're like, I don't know, give Giannis what he wants. He wants Dame instead of Drew Holiday. Do it right now. They don't know about Drew Holiday's defensive impact and how much better he actually is than Damian Lillard when it comes to overall basketball stuff. Yeah, they're just business owners. That's all they are. That's why the Sixers are in what they are every year, because Josh Harris is a terrible one.
And you got to have the guys, you know, like I think that Drew Holiday trade was the last, you know, stepping stone there. Like, yeah, Doc Rivers is awful, but I think trading away Holiday, like that was your glue guy. The roster made sense. Quick question before we go back to the Sixers schedule, because somebody DM'd this to me yesterday. I didn't answer, but I want to know your guys' thoughts. Yes or no? If the Bucks came to the Sixers right now and said Giannis for Embiid straight up, you taking it? Yes or no?
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
Hey,
he would tear his ACL week 3, but you would do it.
I would definitely do it. I mean, look, I know it was some Sixers fans that's like, oh, Embiid, Giannis can't shoot, bro. Giannis still, he ain't the problem in Milwaukee. It's a lot of problems. I don't believe. Maybe if you want to blame him for Agent Griffin being fired, all that, but like Giannis, he's really like still a top 3 player. He's durable. He's gonna play every game. He's got heart. It might be a package deal if you gotta, you know, include his brother in there too, because he plays out of his mind when his brother's on the sideline. But ultimately, I would definitely say pull that trigger if you can. But realistically, you would probably have to add like a first-round pick with that, because the Bucks aren't taking that straight up. They're just not doing it.
Yeah, at this point, you would say yes. And I don't want to say that I think Giannis is a better player than Embiid or has more anything that Embiid has. It's just Embiid's health and the fact that he's 30 years old and has multiple knee surgeries now. You would definitely take a 28-year-old who's been healthier over the course of his career and try to get the next 4 years out of him. You would have to say yes to that.
All right, I'm gonna make the counter argument real quick. Whose game do you think ages better?
Oh, Embiid. Embiid.
I would say Embiid. Embiid.
Yeah, Giannis is going to be a 6'11" Russell Westbrook in no time,
Right.
man.
That's kind of what I was thinking through that as I sat here is when you think about Giannis, it's all run and dunk at the basket, that there's still no bag in him, still not a guy who's become a plus shooter by any means. We know what Joel can do, just posting up or just facing up and shooting mid-range shots over guys. So while like my initial gut reaction was Giannis for sure, thinking about it a little deeper, I would have a little bit of a hard time. Not as clear cut of a decision, but the health risks are obviously at the forefront of your mind.
Interesting question, man. Shout out to Riaz, $5 super chat, who says a question about a specific game. Can we knock off the undefeated Cavs? As a lifelong Sixers fan in Cleveland, would love to brag afterwards. Well, I think the answer to that is Joel Embiid going to play a back-to-back?
No.
And then to that, if that's true, I say no. I don't think they can beat
But I think it's like the Cavs right now are like gambling, like playing blackjack or something. Eventually, you're not gonna go undefeated. You're gonna have a bad game at some point. So every time I look at DraftKings, I'm like, all right, do I bet against the Cavs tonight? Because they're gonna lose eventually, man. Who's it gonna be?
Something still tells me that they're not legit. I mean, they've played a lot better, but it's just hard for me to believe in the Cavs. It is.
Yeah, I mean, I like Donovan Mitchell, but it's like, if he's your best player, how far can your team go? I like him a lot, but second round, like, come on, second round.
Yeah. So I don't know if they can beat the Cavs, but I know tomorrow it's going to be a dog fight against the Knicks. And while I was going on my Bucks rant and we were talking about Doc Rivers, I also was thinking, man, it might suck to be the Knicks right now. I mean, they traded every asset I think that they have, and they're calling Mikal Bridges a role player. I mean, he's averaging like, I don't even know what he's averaging, but I just seen multiple Knicks fans saying, damn, man, what do we do? They're in the second apron. They traded everybody. They traded every pick. And we said it. We all said it. They should not have traded DiVincenzo. But now you got Cat, who's getting absolutely eaten alive in the paint. They don't play defense as well. And Mikal Bridges has the Ben Simmons-itis. So, look, man, now I feel a lot more confident about the Sixers, to be honest. We haven't unleashed their full potential, but
yeah, I think everybody knew Mikal was a role player. I thought that's what he was coming out of college. He was a complete player. It wasn't a guy that was going to get any better than he was. He was like 23 coming out of college, right? A 4-year senior, championship winner from Villanova and everything, but he wasn't a guy that he showed flashes of scoring ability sometimes, and people called him like mini KD or whatever. But like, I don't know how the Cavs sold that. Or the Nets, how the Nets sold him for what, 5 first-round picks? I mean, that's just insane.
That is crazy. But I will disagree with you, Eastwood. Like, I don't think they need him to be a superstar, but he was a lot better than what he's showing right now. And it has to do with the jump shot, quite frankly. I mean, something's wrong with him. I think they tried to change his shot. And
imagine being a Knicks fan and you gave up all of that for him, and then he tried to change his shot. Why'd you do that? Who told you to do that?
Wasn't the guy a 40% shooter from three? Like, I'm pretty sure he was a really good scorer, 3-point shooter. They didn't need that, and he can defend the perimeter.
This is the analytic nerds that are taking over the game, dude. His shot, it was never pretty. It was always kind of above his head or whatever. It was always kind of wonky looking, but he shot it and he made it. Some analytics guy was like, dude, you got to bring the ball down lower. It has to be more here. This is the perfect jump shot. If you do this, this will happen. These athletes got to stop listening to these dudes that never dribbled a basketball, man. They're ruining careers now.
Yeah, shooting coaches do more harm than good in the NBA. That if you're in the NBA, you got there for a reason at this point. Maybe relax on tweaking your shot completely, especially when you've been an above league average 3-point shooter for the entirety of your career. But I'll also say, like, for the Knicks specifically, I think everybody knew it was an overpay at the time, even the denial by Knicks fans there. What's even more shocking to me, it doesn't feel like there's a concrete plan to like incorporate him to the offense, that they do essentially have him as a role player, that he is a 3-and-D guy doing that. Like, even like in his Phoenix days, there were some moments where he was kind of free to create or do stuff in a way. In Brooklyn, obviously, he had the full reins there. I haven't seen any of that in a New York jersey, that there's obviously a clear focus to get Karl Anthony Towns involved. I've seen just about zero effort to get Mikal Bridges into the flow of the offense. So they obviously invested a ton to get him. Unless they find ways to make him more productive, it's going to be looked at as a failure. And frankly, I don't think Bridges is a guy who moved the meter for them from a championship perspective. So I'm pretty happy not to be sitting in New York right now.
And then you got OG Anunoby, who's as likely to be healthy in the playoffs as Joel Embiid, basically.
Less.
And,
Oh, yeah.
and then you got Karl Anthony Towns, who's giving up 92% at the rim. So there you go, Knicks. Good job.
And I think we're kind of seeing now that the way to build a roster is like you got to really hit on those couple big draft picks.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just trade every asset and do everything for, you know, big names, because now what? The Knicks can't upgrade. Like, say OG gets hurt or, you know, Cat isn't playing up to par. What do? They can't do anything. Just like the Bucks have to trade one of their big pieces to get something back to now try to refill their draft capital. I just think we're going to see a change in the guard of like how teams try to build. Like the Celtics are doing it perfectly. As much as it pains me to say, they figured it out. And the Celtics won already. They've now paid everybody. They don't care about 3 years down the line. Like they know they can keep dominating with this team that they have. And it's because they drafted the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I got it to my cap. I mean, if we just had, you know, a couple of these draft picks, we've had like some top 3 picks for multiple years in the, and Embiid was the only one, and of course he's the only one that I guess outside of Ben Simmons that just doesn't play as much. But you hit that nail on the head, bro. I mean, Celtics did it right. They did it right.
Yeah, and to put like, can you imagine if Tyrese Maxey was just a regular good player and not this like crazy guy that's future, obviously a current all-star and a guy that is like capable of all these great things? Like if that dude was just like a solid role player, which would have still been a win for the 21st overall pick, we're probably not talking about the championship window being open in Philadelphia anymore. So kind of crazy how much that draft pick specifically really did save this franchise.
Yeah, I think Daryl Morey is the first GM that we've had that actually knows what he's doing in an NBA draft, and he's been hitting some winners, man, for years now. You know, even that second round where he took Isaiah Joe and Paul Reed and Charles Bassey all in the second round. Yeah, he's been great, and you know, teams Danny Ainge is just like a wizard of a GM, man. He just is, you know. And you look at the Sixers picks, and like they were the right pick at the time, but would Danny Ainge have drafted Ben Simmons in 2016? He would have found a way not to. I guarantee it. Yeah. He didn't want Markelle Fultz? That's why they traded down. He just outsmarted the Sixers for a long. Took Jaylen Brown at number 3. Nobody was talking about Jaylen Brown leading up to that draft. He was a project in college, and this guy drafted him number 3 overall. It's like he could see the future.
Yeah, crazy stuff, man. Let's wrap it up by talking about the Sixers' next 5 games. So they got the Knicks, the Cavs, the Magic without Paolo, Miami in Miami, and then Memphis in Memphis. So how many games do they win out of the next 5? Like, do we see them get back on track? I mean, they got a back-to-back, so Embiid probably doesn't play Wednesday. Maxey's still out for probably all these games. How many games do you think they can win out of the next 5?
Can you say the teams again?
So tomorrow, the Knicks, and then the Cavs at home, then Orlando Magic, Miami Heat, and Memphis Grizzlies all on the road.
I think they win 4 out of 5 is my take there. I think the Cavs game is the one that they drop. I do think they win tomorrow. I think there's going to be an energy with Joel back, and I do think that there's legitimate holes in how this Knicks team is playing. I think the Cavs, I'm going to chalk that one up, give that to them, that they look unbelievable right now, incredibly connected, and we will not have Joel Embiid most likely there. Beyond that, like the Magic are not the same without Paolo. Still a good team that you absolutely have to show up for, but they're a team that can be beaten. This Miami Heat team, I still can't quite figure out what to make of them on the season, and I think that's kind of the theme with the Heat from a year in and year out basis. And then looking at Memphis, Ja's on crutches again, man. The injury bug's biting there once again, and I think the Sixers can take 4 out of 5 in this stretch, and all of a sudden the season's looking a little better.
What happened to John
You're
Morant?
missing Jay Huff.
What's that?
What happened to John Morant? What did I miss?
Sprained ankle. It's not like a long-term thing, but he is on crutches and week to week right now.
Damn, that sucks.
Mm-hmm.
You're forgetting about Jay Huff with Memphis, man. Jay Huff.
Yeah, the other superstar.
And by the way, Cleveland has George Niang too. We got to point that out. It's a big reason that they are undefeated is George Niang, the best physique in basketball. George Niang.
I'm going with 3. I think they lose to the Cavs. I think they lose to Miami or Memphis maybe, but probably Miami. So I think they go 3-2. And I hope Embiid stays healthy. And I hope he actually looks like Joel Embiid and doesn't just play 20 minutes and then gets subbed out and all that. But I'll go 3.
MJ, what you got?
I'll say I will never pick the Knicks over I would never ever in my life. So we gonna win that. Cavs, I think we dropped that mainly because I don't think Embiid plays that, and that's gonna stir up some controversy, all of that. That'll make some headlines. I think we beat the Magic, so that's 2-1. I think we fall to that, and then the Grizzlies. So 3-2. 3-2. So we just lose to the Heat and Cavs.
Speaking of the Cavs, they just won, by the way. So now they're 12-0.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Who they have? Like, is it Kenny Atkinson, their coach? Yeah, he's coach. Yeah.
Shout out to Kenny, man.
Huge.
Eastwood, how many games, man, out of the next 5?
I'm 3-2 also. I actually think they lose the first 2 and win 3 in a row. That's what I think. Joel Embiid coming back from his, ramp up protocol and all of this stuff. The Sixers fans are excited to watch him play. I'm excited to watch him play too. But you gotta know what's gonna happen. He's gonna have 11 turnovers. He's gonna be rusty. He's gonna be rusty Joel Embiid. They're gonna force the ball to him. He's gonna be off balance. He's gonna be out of sync. It's not gonna look good. People think Joel's back and he's gonna drop a 40-point triple-double out here. It takes him a month on a regular season to get up to speed and in the rhythm and everything. I'm not expecting him to look good at all tomorrow. So there's my take on that.
I'll respond to that by saying I am so prepared for the overreactions tomorrow night. I'm taking an under on the trade Embiids that I get on Twitter. I'm taking like 9.5, taking the over. Get Embiid out of here. Which, by the way, like I still don't get it. I mean, I kind of get it, but I don't. Like the Embiid hate club. Like we've seen what the team is without him. Right?
Yeah, you like watching this team?
That's what I'm saying. Like, do you want to watch this for the next 5 years now and try to get, back to where we're at? Like, the team is not the same without Joel. But the next couple of games are not going to be pretty, and the trade Embiid club will be. They'll be out there throwing fire, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the only thing I'll say, I agree with DJ's point as far as it is a ramp-up process for Joel. We do know that. But I do think he's going to completely change how this team looks defensively in a major way that I do think will equate to a win and the team looking way better. That no, he's not going to be, in his MVP form, but just him as a guy protecting the rim and being a force that changes everything for the Sixers team. And I still think he will be licking his chops at Karl Anthony Towns in a couple opportunities in this game.
Yeah, I don't know how healthy he is, so it's hard to make a prediction. But
Sure.
You're absolutely right, especially the defensive side of the floor, man. Even without any blocks on his stat sheet, he changes everything that happens. Players stop going in the paint completely when Joel's on the floor. I personally think he's been Defensive Player of the Year about 5 times out of 8 years. He absolutely changes the entire way the basketball game is played when he's on the floor. So hopefully we definitely see a defensive impact from him.
Yeah, I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but I would have to assume the Sixers have given up the most points in the paint this season. I mean, every game we get like 20, we're like a minus 20 in that category. We get out rebounded by 10, 20. That should come to an end, hopefully.
We are dead last in the NBA in opponent blocks also. We get blocked at the rim all the time because we have 2 guys now that close their eyes and go right at everybody, Kelly Oubre and Caleb Martin. So they, it's pretty easy to block a guy who's just putting his head down and running at you.
Yeah, well, at least we hopefully won't see 4 guard lineups in the fourth quarter. Kind of excited about that, but
please.
Do the Sixers lead the league in missed dunks, by the way? I feel like we miss more dunks than anybody too.
Oubre's got to have that wrapped up by now. He's got to be like the all-time leader in missed dunks.
He was the guy that was the athlete that was going to poster people, and he put on a Sixers jersey, and he just shanks dunks left and right, man.
All right, man. Before we wrap it up, one thing that we each want to see tomorrow night. I think it's open for a lot of, difference here with these answers. I'll go first. I want to see Jared McCain play at least 30 minutes tomorrow night. Has to. Absolutely. Play him in the big game against New York. Let him go ball out. That's what I got.
Yeah, you stole mine off the bat, RB, but I'll go. just Joel to be Joel. Like that to me is like the number one thing as far as like we truly don't know how healthy this guy is. We don't know what kind of shape he's in or anything like that. I've seen the videos of him looking skinny. There's things that if you want to look at this positively, you can find evidence for. If you want to look at this negatively for, that's completely fair outlook as well. So I just need Joel Embiid to look like himself, be moving okay on the floor. And if that is the case, I'll be back all the way in on the season completely.
Yeah, just to piggyback off y'all. Obviously, I'm high on Jared McCain. I think he's a phenomenal player. He's gonna be a great player in this league. Obviously, we want to see Joel Embiid, show up and with all this missed time, go ahead and beat the Knicks. But I'll say I want to see some more from Paul George. We all know Paul George hasn't looked like a max player this season. I mean, that's being nice. That's being, 14 points. Like, come on. So I think that ultimately I want to see him look much better. I want to see 25 points from Paul George. I mean, look, a lot of the pressure is going to be off you because Embiid is back. Go ahead, be efficient, play make like you've been doing, but get the ball in the hoop. I'm looking for Paul George to go ahead and step up.
Yeah, I think I'm looking for Jared McCain minutes also, but I wouldn't be shocked if it doesn't happen the way that we think it's going to happen because, you have a coach that's still going to put his ideas ahead of kind of the obvious. I still feel like he needs, I feel like Nick Nurse needs to see more from Jared McCain for him to throw him out there for 30 minutes. That's just what I'm expecting because I'm just so traumatized by Doc Rivers. I've seen it so many times. We would think like, oh, this guy earned the spot, and then all of a sudden it's, the same old washed veteran out there off the bench first, and but yeah, I think I would love to see that. I think I want to see Yabusele with more minutes than Andre Drummond again.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting thing that we didn't talk about is what role does Yabusele play with Embiid back? Like, does he do his minutes get cut because Embiid's back because he's not the backup center now? Drummond is. Does he play the 4 next to Drummond in the bench lineups, or does he have lineups? It's interesting. I'm really interested to see what happens tomorrow. But yeah, that's what I got.
That's actually an interesting point. I mean, we could go around real quick. Like, what's our starting lineup going to be tomorrow? I mean, Maxi's out, obviously, but I actually, Eastwood, I think Yabu's going to play the 4 tomorrow. I do.
Start?
Yeah, I think he is. I would start him. Maybe Nurse disagrees, but who else are you going to put in there? With Maxi out, I think Oubre will start.
Yep.
I think, well, obviously PG will start.
Martin.
Yeah, I don't like that. I'm sorry. I don't like Martin at the power forward. I don't like whoever at like PG technically at the power forward. I think you need more size, especially against the Knicks. I like Yabu.
SB Cole in the chat might be right. He said Nick Nurse will 100% want to see what Eric Gordon looks like next to Joel Embiid.
That's true.
And again, it would be shocking to see it, but I wouldn't be shocked if we see the starting lineup and it's Eric Gordon, dude. I wouldn't be shocked.
I actually wouldn't be shocked if it's KJ Martin. I think Nurse likes to he just likes to try to think outside the box sometimes.
He had a DNP last night. What was up with that? What do you guys think about that?
I was about to say that too. I was pretty surprised by that. To be honest, I think KJ Martin has been pretty excellent at the start of the season. I've been really impressed with him. So I was surprised to see him get 0 clock, especially with Drummond struggling.
I mean, Gordon got a DNP the game before, and then he came back and played. So there's no rhyme or reason, man. We don't know. But I wanted to present this to you guys as well. I think when Maxi comes back, for now, you have Kyle starting. I actually kind of like the punch of Kelly and Caleb off the bench. I think those two together could make some noise with McCain, KJ, and Drummond maybe.
Yeah.
Start Yabu at the 4. I kind of like that dynamic of Kelly and Caleb, not just, playing 20 minutes a game, playing more, but coming in on that second unit and just lighting it up.
I think it's one or the other as far as coming off the bench. That from a season-wide standpoint, I don't see both of them ever coming. That I think I more prefer Kelly being the guy that's like more of a 6-man or off the bench spark because he is a little like instant offense or jolt of energy that I don't think Caleb Martin necessarily is. And like while the shot hasn't been falling for Caleb Martin, I still think he's been mostly pretty good. Like defensively, you absolutely feel him. He's making a lot of the right decisions, right cuts. You can still see he's like a good basketball player. So I haven't been as down on Caleb Martin as I think probably the perception is, but I do think that he's pretty much a lock for this starting lineup.
Yeah, but where does he fit in at? Like with PG on the floor, with Maxey on the floor, say you have Kyle Lowry starting. Like, is Caleb just the permanent four? I don't think he can be.
Like you look at this Knicks team, like it would be Mikal Bridges is probably his matchup. That like Cat's their big man. That's obviously the Joel. Like there isn't really that. Like Josh Hart's their biggest rebounding threat straight up, and like you're not that worried from a size standpoint. It's obviously the effort and hustle that he brings there. So like I think Nurse is going to look at it as what are my best five, and we're going to roll from there. I don't think we know the answer to what the best five is right now.
Yeah, and I think
I just think the Knicks rebound the ball, though. I don't think the Sixers rebound the ball. That's the difference, you know? Like Josh Hart can give you 15 rebounds in one game, and it's like, I wish we had a guy like that. But
I think players like Caleb Martin, they obviously too get a bad rep for when they're thrown in and have to take more shots than they're used to taking and try to play a higher level offensively than they're supposed to be playing. They just look bad. It's like the race car, the guy that's supposed to be changing the tires is suddenly driving the car and he drives it straight into the wall. You know, it's to get him back into what he's supposed to be doing, and he'll look like Caleb Martin again. So, but yeah, I love his intensity, and he did have 4 steals last night. Somebody said in the chat. So I don't hate Caleb Martin starting. I'm excited to see these guys back in the roles that we signed them for. You know.
Yeah.
Good point.
Good point. I mean, I'm looking at this starting lineup. Kyle Lowry is going to start. I mean, that's what's going to happen. He's going to start. I don't like it, but that's what's going to start. Obviously, PG, Embiid, Caleb Martin, he's going to be there. I think Nick Nurse, he's probably waited. I know Yabusele has been shooting well. He's shooting 42% from 3-point range this year. So I think Nick Nurse is like, let me, if he keeps this up, I'll insert him in that, starting lineup. I think he still trusts Caleb Martin more as a shooter, especially with Embiid. But I would love to see Yabusele. I'm keep stuttering on his name, Yabusele. But I'm like, I would love to see. I mean, he has improved as a shooter, and so if he stays consistent, and he's like, I'm not expecting him to be a 42, 43% shooter, but if he can be 38, 37%, put him in that starting lineup.
Well, I got a stat for you guys. In 90 games in the EuroLeague over the course of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, Gershon Yabusele shot 41.1% from 3.
Love it.
I think, his shot form looks like that of a guy that's probably not a good 3-point shooter, but
like
41% over the course of 4 years. And he's shooting the 3 well again. So I think he's got it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope he can keep it up, man. Definitely an interesting start to the season. Not one that we could have predicted, but real season starts tomorrow. So hopefully the Sixers can get on the right track. Hopefully Joel gets back to form, and we'll see how it plays out, man. But appreciate you guys coming on again, and love doing this, man. So, let's start off on a good note tomorrow, man. Let's beat this Knicks team. Why not?
Opening night.
Yeah.
It's not going to be good. I'm sorry, guys. It's not going to be good. But we're going to ramp up, and the season's going to turn. It's going to get good eventually, but tomorrow's not going to be. It's not going to be good tomorrow night. Sorry.
Come on, Embiid. 25 points. Let's do it.
He might only play 20 minutes. Let's be real.
Yeah.
He can score 25 in 20 minutes, no problem.
Are the Sixers favored tomorrow? They can't be, right?
I think 1-point favorite. I'm pretty sure.
The Sixers are favored tomorrow?
I believe so. I'll double check and confirm, but I'm pretty sure I saw that earlier.
It's hard for me to believe that, to be honest.
Nah, let me see this real quick. Hold on. No
double checked.
No
myself.
Hey guys, just so you know, I lost a 4-game parlay because the Pelicans lost to the Nets by 2 points. Hit 3 out of 4.
And yeah, Sixers actually 1-point favorites tomorrow.
Oh,
Wow. Okay. Well, maybe the Knicks really just suck then.
They do, man. I'm telling you.
I know Brunson hasn't been as good this year.
They're 4-5. They've won, and it just hasn't looked right. Like
you
every
know
time
why Brunson hasn't been good? They're not giving him this sideways jump, sideways slide, cancel, foul free throws all game. I'm telling you, man. They stopped calling it finally. It happened in the Pacers. It happened in the playoffs last year. They called it against us. He shot all the free throws, jumping sideways and backwards. And then in the Pacers series, they stopped calling it and they lost.
Brunson is nowhere near a number one on a championship team. No way.
Yeah.
Don't let Knicks fans hear you say that, man.
I don't care.
I want all the smoke with Knicks fans, man.
Yeah, all the smoke.
There's a lot that I feel like is unfinished from last year. And it's not going to be, tomorrow, but in the long run.
He's a free throw he's a real free throw merchant. See, they call Embiid one, but the difference is you have to foul Joel Embiid.
Right.
Jalen Brunson, you're trying not to. You're running away from him, and he's chasing you with the ball.
Yeah.
It also like they always claim like ethical hoops about Jalen Brunson, which is just the most absurd thing in the world to me. It's like it's the opposite of that, man. Like this is disrespectful stuff.
You guys might not be ready for this bold take, but the Knicks, what they did last year was the Sixers' 2021 loss to the Hawks. The Knicks blew an opportunity to beat the Pacers. They got wiped away in Game 7 on their home floor. I know they were banged up, but they wasted an opportunity. And I don't think they're getting back past the second round. I don't think they're getting there.
I'll do you one better. I think they are the 2021 Hawks. That I think they're the team that snuck by on a team that blew an opportunity, and that was kind of their peak for this. Look at what we've seen from Atlanta these past couple years. I don't think this New York team got better. I think they basically cashed in and changed their identity in a way that in the long run is going to be worse. Like Karl Anthony Towns is everything that team wasn't, and now you're building around him as your secondary star. And I think that was the peak of what we saw for this era of Knicks basketball, which if that is the case, turns out pretty sad.
Also, Knicks fans, a lot like Philly fans, a lot like Boston fans, totally different than Minnesota, So you can play like that in Minnesota. Nobody cares. Yeah. Half of them don't even watch basketball,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think they kind of messed up their own chances.
He's in a basketball town now. That's the biggest basketball town there is.
Yeah. Some guys aren't built for it, So... Man, it'll be interesting to see how this season plays out. A lot of storylines so far. Can't wait to see what they do tomorrow night. Appreciate you guys for coming on. Shout out to the chat, man. Appreciate you guys. And yeah, man, one game at a time. All part of the plan. All a part of the ramp-up process.
We're ramping up to start ramping up.
Yes, sir, man. Hey, Sixers therapy, man. This was good. I needed a therapy session. I did. All right, guys.